Hey everyone, it looks a whole lot like that massively inflated, that big gigantic bubble that is the Canadian housing market. It looks like someone poked it and the air is now slowly seeping out. Now the deflationary aspect, right? All that speculation, all that exuberance, those animal spirits in regards to the housing market in Canada. It looks like, oh, the party's over. Not only is it starting to unwind, but damn, you better start to race for the exits, or at least get the hell out of Dodge and stop playing around in this particular segment of the economy that is the housing market. Because, yeah, things are going to go south. Things are going to get real sour very soon. Last year, we already seen now that, everyone thought in Canada, that was the crazy part. And I was like, what? Why would you think that? Why do you think that your house, especially all these new houses that are being built, if you've seen the kind of value added products and refurbished type materials that they're using to build these houses, like I say, if you were in the housing market, like I am in the construction area of it and seeing what your houses are being built with, it's like, why do people think that their houses are now worth all this amount of money that's completely in disregard and not even closely aligned with anything that should be fundamentally as far as understanding what valuation should be? But once again, it came down to central planning, right? Central banks lowering the interest rate, enticing people to get into the market. Hey, snake oil salesman, right? Come on, jump in now. Look, because if you buy your house now, it could go up by another 20% by next year. It's like, yeah, the pyramid scheme is played out, and it did benefit some people, but like I say, there's only a certain small percentage of the people that actually get to benefit from this kind of crap. Because if everybody could benefit from it, well, think about it. Yeah, that don't work properly because we can't all benefit from a Ponzi scheme, right? That's an impossible scenario. So there's a lot of people that are now the ones that were a little late to the game, or the ones that, aren't quite economically or fiscally or financially responsible or astute. Now you're all starting to realize that, hey, now you shouldn't listen to the advice of these real estate people or the central bankers or the crony corporates or the banksters or those in government, right, that gets the benefit from all that shit. Because that's the thing, the people in government, they benefit from the housing market too, because it's your property valuations. Hey, they make lots of tax off that stuff. Or every time there's any kind of interaction economically or a transaction, well, the government gets to tax the shit out of that. So there's been all kinds of, like I say, this false exuberance regarding the housing market in Canada. But hey, the bubble got burst a little bit towards the end of last year, and we're seeing now that the air is coming out, folks. So the exuberance is over. You might want to start thinking more wisely. You might want to start thinking properly about valuations of that roof over your head. And let me tell you, as someone that's been into new home construction for many years, if you knew the kind of materials that they were using today to build these houses, yeah, it's not like the stuff that they used back 100 years ago that's going to last. I have a house actually back east that's over 100 years old, but the materials that they used, it was built not just for looks and beauty and all this stuff that's inside, right? It was built to last. Today, no, with all the value-added products and all these recycled materials that they're using, yeah, and the value of it, it's like, really? A bunch of fucking glue and some chips put together, and you're paying more than you would for actual, like, real hardwood? Who does such a thing? Well, apparently a lot of foolish people today. But, like I say, it's coming to an end, folks, so you might want to think about that. And a matter of fact, for the younger people, that's a really good thing for you. You want the housing market, especially if you're from the millennials or even some of those on the lower end of the Gen X scale. You want the housing market. You want it to crash, and you want it to crash hardcore, because guess what? You'll be the benefactor of that. If you're the older Gen Xers, or in particularly the boomers, they're hoping that the housing market never crashes, because they want to sell that house that they bought back in the 70s or 80s for what, anywhere from $20,000 to $70,000, $80,000. They want to be able to sell that for $1 million or $2 million and retire on it. So the boomers, a lot of them, like especially the one that jumped in the housing market early on, some of them, the immoral, the corrupt people, right? They're like, come on, let's keep this housing scheme going a little bit longer. Now, I don't think they're going to, I think they're at the other side of that scale, on the other side of that hump. I don't think they're going to benefit any further. So, hey, do the wise thing, you young people, you millennials, and you people in Gen X that are on the lower end of that scale or the bottom end of the age demographic, be wise. Hold off. Short-term pain. Pay that rent for a little while longer if you all do that right thing, and the housing market actually does go through a proper correction and valuation get back to anything even remotely resembling common sense or proper market values, then you should step in. Stepping in before that, stepping in when you're at the top of the market, at the top of the Ponzi scheme, no, because then there's only one place left to go, and that's down. So be wise, be wary, Canadians, and it'll pay off for you. Like I say, that's where a little bit of conservatism, putting off the immediate gratification for long-term gains, that's where there is a good common sense reasoning to use a little bit of a conservative mentality or mindset when you're talking about Canada's housing market. Headline out of CBC News, Business. Canadian home sales expected to fall 11% this year. CREA says May sales hit 5-year low and forecasts overall 11% decline this year. So if they're forecasting 11% decline, they don't want to shock the system or shock you too much. So chances are it'll probably be double, triple. Hey, could be a whole lot worse than that. So be wise, be wary, because they're not going to give you any genuine truth. They're just kind of playing around, skirting around the edges. Take that with a grain of salt, this particular headline. Home sales in Canada are projected to slide by 11% this year, according to a new forecast by a national real estate group. It's a national real estate group, folks, so come on. Like I say, these aren't the people that are going to be 100% honest with you. So once again, like I said, take this kind of information with a grain of salt. Be wise and be wary. In a mid-year update to its market outlook released Friday, the Canadian Real Estate Association, CREA, said sales of homes this year via the Multiple Listing Services, MLS, is now seen coming in at 459,900 units. Sales in 2017 topped 517,000 units. The decrease almost entirely reflects weaker sales in BC and Ontario amid heightened housing market uncertainty. Provincial policy measures, high home prices, ongoing supply shortages, and this year's new mortgage stress test, CRA said in its outlook. The latest outlook marks a downgrade from the forecast CRA offered in March when it said total national home sales this year were expected to total 479,400. Oh, you mean these experts? They were wrong once again? Imagine that. The real estate group's latest forecast also says the national average price for a home is projected to ease this year to 499,100, which would represent a drop of just over 2% from the 2017 national average. So that's still nowhere close enough, folks. Like I say, hold off, bite your tongue, sit down, relax, do something. Just don't delve into this freaking housing market now. Like, wait for it to correct much, much further than it is now. Meanwhile, CREA also reported that home sales hit a 5-year low in May as they dropped by a modest 0.1% from April. So once again, like I said, this is only the beginning. This is only precipice, folks. So right? Take a few deep breaths, relax. Trust me, you'll be much wiser and you'll be much better off financially if you wait. Just hold off. Just wait. Hold, right? Hold. Just be patient, folks. Be patient. CRA said that slightly more than half of all local housing markets reported fewer sales in May compared to April, led by the Okanagan region, Chilliwack, and the Fraser Valley, together with the Durham region of the Greater Toronto Area and Quebec City. Sales gains were reported in Calgary and in the Ontario Centre's Thunder Bay, Brantford, London, and St. Thomas, Oakville, Milton, and the Quint region west of Kingston. Sales in the Greater Toronto Area also showed a small increase. So I guess the Torontonians are still, well, what do you expect? There's a lot of Torontonians that are still foolish and naive to believe that this housing market speculative values and prices are just going to keep on going up because there's only one way to go, right? What a weird way to think. What a weird way. I mean, just think if that was a reality. Nobody would have to even work. You could just buy a house and just live off of the proceeds of the increased speculative value of it, right? What if we all did that? Don't you think something would dramatically shift? Something would happen there? Yes. And there's already enough people that are going to see that reality and experience that reality. Trust me, it's going to happen. Be wise out there, folks. I'm going to say it one more time. Patience is key when it comes to the housing market in Canada. Let that correction take place. It's going to cause some pain for a lot of people that have been using their house as a credit card or as their pretense of their line of credit that they're going to use to cash in at some point in time for their retirement, right? As if that's their savings. That pot that just keeps growing and growing and growing. Yeah, it's like I say, it's all going to come to a head. It's all going to come to an event, and eventually. And if you're smart, you're not going to be the one that gets caught holding the biggest valuation or paying the biggest price, the biggest speculative value on that home that you want to stay in. That one that maybe you had ideas that you were going to raise a family in, right? You can lose not just your home, but you can lose the shirt off your back if you haven't made the wise decision. If that valuation starts to decrease like it did in the U.S. in the crash that happened in 2008. Canada's crash is coming. It's just because Canada's been putting that extend and pretend, right? That kicking the can down the road. But the can's, it's beat all the shit, folks. There's not much of a can to kick down in the road anymore. So, yeah, it's coming. It's just a matter of, like I say, being wise enough to not put yourself in a position where you're the one that's going to be greatly harmed. Your future economic prosperity, all that work you're going to have to do to pay off these loans, this mortgage. It could be a lot. I mean, typical mortgage is at least 25 years, so you got to do a little bit of long-term thinking when it comes to the housing market. It's not one of those impulse purchases where you can brush it off and, there's only a few $100, I'll make it up next week or next pay. No, long-term thinking, being wise, being astute in regards to the valuations, the proper valuations, that'll make you a long-term winner. So, let some of the people that's having that short-term game, let the ones that have stuck the drug in their arm, let them enjoy the rush for a while. But trust me, eventually when that high wears off, you're the one that's going to be saying, hey, you shouldn't have done that. You should have been listening to people like Bennett. He'd be much better position, much better for the long run, for the end game. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.